I'm 38, male, a high school history teacher in Ohio. I own a modest three-bedroom house that I inherited when my parents passed, and I have always been the kind of person who believes family comes first. That belief nearly destroyed me. My sister and her husband had been struggling, or so they said. They called it a rough patch. Lost income, behind on rent, nowhere to go. She cried on the phone. Her husband gave me the whole speech about temporary hardship and getting back on their feet. My niece, 6 years old, had supposedly developed selective mutism following some kind of developmental scare. Doctors involved, therapy twice a week, the whole thing. My sister was very specific about it. She does not speak. Not a word. Don't expect her to, and don't pressure her. So I said yes.
Come stay.
3 months, tops. They moved in on a Tuesday in February. 3 people for suitcases, 1 dog they forgot to mention, and enough attitude to fill the entire house. The first week was normal. My sister cooked dinner twice. Her husband, I'll call him my brother-in-law, shook my hand and said thank you like he meant it. My niece sat at the kitchen table with wide brown eyes and said nothing, which I had been prepared for. She colored in her books. She watched cartoons. She'd occasionally tug my sleeve to show me something she drew. She was sweet. Completely silent, but sweet. By week 3, I noticed things shifting. My brother-in-law had started leaving coffee rings on my desk. My sister began reorganizing my kitchen cabinets without asking. Small stuff. I told myself that's just what happens when people share space. Then my brother-in-law started making comments about the guest Wi-Fi password. I hadn't given them the main network, and when I explained I preferred it that way, he laughed like I'd told a bad joke. Come on, man. We're family. The guest network works fine, I said.
He stopped laughing.
Week 5, I found my brother-in-law on a phone call in the living room, talking about the house.
Not in it.
About it. I only caught pieces, 3 bedrooms, assessed around 260. Yeah, it's in his name, but... And when I walked in, he ended the call fast. Smiled at me. Work stuff, he said. I nodded. I should have pressed right then. I didn't. My niece watched the whole thing from the couch. She looked at me, and then she looked at the floor. Month 2 is when the request started. It began with my brother-in-law asking me to add him to my checking account. Just for emergencies, he said, in case something happens to you. I told him no, calmly and clearly. He brought it up again 2 days later, this time framing it as a practical matter, something responsible adults do for family. I said no again. Then came the forged document. I discovered it by accident. I came home from school early on a Thursday. Faculty and service day got cut short, and my brother-in-law wasn't supposed to be home. His car was in the driveway. I went in quietly. He was at my kitchen table with papers spread out and a pen in his hand, and when he saw me, he swept them into a folder fast. Too fast. What is that? I asked. Nothing. Refinance paperwork. Just looking into options. Options for what? That's my house. He stood up slowly, like he was trying to control the temperature in the room. Look, I was going to talk to you about this. There's a way we could restructure the deed. Just add my name, nothing changes for you, and use the equity to get our feet under us. It makes sense financially. I stared at him. You were filling out paperwork to put your name on my house. To help both of us. Get out of my kitchen. My sister came home an hour later and immediately started crying. Not the sad kind, the manipulative kind, the kind designed to make you feel like the aggressor. She said I was threatening to leave them homeless.
She said I had always looked down on them.
She called my mother, God rest her, and invoked her name, saying our mother would have wanted me to do the right thing. The right thing, I said, is not signing over my house to your husband. She switched tactics, told me my brother-in-law had connections, that he knew a real estate attorney who could challenge inherited property transfers under Ohio law if there were disputes about intent. It was nonsense, pure intimidation, but she said it with such confidence that for a moment I second-guessed myself. The next morning, I found the family dog had chewed through a baseboard in the hallway. My brother-in-law shrugged. That's just what dogs do. I called a real estate attorney myself that afternoon. She confirmed what I suspected. The house was mine, free and clear, and there was no legal mechanism for my brother-in-law to challenge ownership based on family proximity. But she also told me something important. Be careful about any documents you sign, she said, and get them out before this becomes an adverse possession situation. Ohio requires 30 years of continuous occupation for that, so you're not in danger right now, but you want this resolved clean. I gave them a 30-day written notice to vacate that evening. Certified mail and a paper copy handed directly to my sister. I took photos of the timestamp. My sister stopped speaking to me. My brother-in-law sent me 3 text messages that night, each one escalating. The last one said, "You'll regret this." My niece sat at the dinner table that evening. Just the two of us. She ate her macaroni. She looked at me once, very seriously, and then looked back at her plate. I had no idea what was coming. The 30-day notice wound down. My sister and brother-in-law announced they had found a place, grudgingly, poisonously, with every passive-aggressive remark they could fit into a sentence, and moving day was set for a Saturday. That morning they loaded their things, rented a small truck, and by early afternoon they were almost out. My sister said goodbye with a hug that felt like something she was performing for a camera. My brother-in-law didn't shake my hand. He just said, "You'll see," which I took to mean nothing and everything at once. They left my niece with me for about 40 minutes while they made a first run to the new apartment. Standard logistics. She was playing quietly in the living room, and it was easier than hauling her on a truckload. I was in the kitchen cleaning up, maybe 15 minutes after they left, when I heard a small voice behind me. "Uncle." I turned around so fast I knocked a dish towel off the counter. My niece was standing in the kitchen doorway, completely upright, hands at her sides. She looked like she had been preparing for this moment. "Hey," I said carefully, like I was trying not to startle a bird. "Hey, sweetheart. I have to tell you something," she said. Her voice was steady, surprisingly steady for a 6-year-old delivering what felt, even before I knew what it was, like testimony. "Okay," I said. I crouched down to her level. "Daddy has a copy of something he made you sign," she said. "He practiced your name." I saw him. He put it in the blue folder inside his big suitcase. I held very still. "What kind of something do you know?" She shook her head. "Papers. House papers. He said it was almost done, and then you ruined it." I had signed exactly one document in the past 2 months, a routine car insurance renewal. Nothing else. But I also remembered a moment 6 weeks ago when my brother-in-law had handed me a form he said was a waiver for the dog from our HOA. A document I signed without reading fully because it seemed administrative and he'd been standing over me, friendly and chatty, and I was exhausted from a full school day. I had completely forgotten about it. The suitcase was still in the guest room. They hadn't moved the last load yet. I walked in there. I opened the big suitcase. Found the blue folder. Inside it was a document, notarized, dated 6 weeks ago, that appeared to transfer partial ownership interest of the property to my brother-in-law. My signature was at the bottom. It wasn't mine, but it was close. Very close. Someone had practiced. My hands were steady because I needed them to be. I photographed every page with my phone. I put the folder back exactly as I found it. I called my real estate attorney. She picked up on the second ring. "Don't confront him yet," she said, when I explained. "If this is a forged deed transfer, that's felony-level fraud in Ohio under ORC 2913.01. You need to get this to the county recorder's office first thing Monday to verify if it was filed, and simultaneously to the county prosecutor. Photograph everything you have." I had already done both. When my brother-in-law came back for the last load, he came in whistling. He grabbed 2 boxes. He carried them to the truck. He walked back past me without making eye contact. I watched him leave. My niece was still on the living room couch. She was coloring again like nothing had happened. I sat down next to her. "Thank you," I said quietly. She didn't look up. She just nodded once, like a little diplomat, and kept coloring. Monday morning, I was at the county recorder's office when they opened at 8 a.m. The document had been filed. 6 weeks ago, my brother-in-law had actually filed a fraudulent deed transfer claiming partial ownership interest in my property, using a forged signature. The clerk flagged it immediately when I showed them my original deed and my own signature side by side. They contacted the county prosecutor's office before noon. My real estate attorney moved to void the fraudulent transfer that same day, filing an emergency petition with supporting photographic evidence, the original deed, and an affidavit from me. Under Ohio law, a forged deed is void ab initio, meaning legally it never existed, but the filing still had to be formally invalidated to clean the title. That process took 11 business days, during which time my attorney also filed a civil suit for fraud and quiet title. The criminal side moved separately. The county prosecutor's office opened a formal investigation into deed fraud under ORC 2913.02 and forgery under ORC 2913.31. Both are felonies in Ohio. My brother-in-law was contacted by investigators within 2 weeks of my report. Here is where it got satisfying. My brother-in-law, apparently believing he still had leverage, called me during the investigation. He told me that if I dropped everything, he'd make it worth my while. He said my sister would never forgive me. He said I was making a mistake I couldn't undo. He said a lot of things, and I recorded every single word of it with my state's single-party consent law fully on my side. Ohio permits one-party recording of phone calls under ORC 2933.52. I handed that recording to the prosecutor's office the same afternoon. He was indicted on 2 counts, felony theft by deception and forgery, roughly 4 months after moving out of my house. My civil suit settled before trial. The fraudulent deed transfer was formally vacated from the public record, and the settlement required my brother-in-law to pay my legal fees plus damages totaling just over $19,000. His attorney negotiated. Mine didn't blink. On the criminal side, he accepted a plea agreement. 1 felony count of forgery with a suspended sentence, 2 years of probation, and mandatory restitution. His record now reflects a felony conviction in Ohio. That is not a thing that goes away. My sister called me once, about 3 months after everything concluded. She said I had destroyed their lives. She said a lot of the same things people say when they've been caught and need someone else to be the villain. I let her finish. I told her I loved her. I told her that what her husband did was a felony and that I did not chase that charge. The state of Ohio did. Then I told her I had to go, and I ended the call. I have not heard from either of them since. My niece's selective mutism, I found out later through a mutual relative, had been improving for months. Her therapist had noted real progress. She wasn't mute because she couldn't speak. She was quiet because she had been in an environment where speaking up had consequences.
She spoke up for me.
A 6-year-old did what no adult around me had the courage to do. I think about that every time I unlock my front door. My house, my name on the deed, clean and clear. My kitchen, my baseboard, repaired, and not a coffee ring in sight. Some people enter your life to take everything you have. Some leave behind something you didn't expect. I'm just glad the smallest person in the room had the biggest nerve. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, hit subscribe, because unlike my brother-in-law, I promise the next one won't try to steal anything from you.